Welcome back to the 27. Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsports, from its grease monkey origins to the glamour of Monaco to the multi-billion-dollar industry it is today. Which era would you consider to be the golden era of Formula One? Was it Jim Clark, Graham Hill? How about Ayrton Senna versus Alain Prost? What about the Michael Schumacher era? Since the release of the new Schumacher documentary on Netflix, guess what? Today I am Michael Schumacher, and I'm driving the Formula V10 Gen 1 at the request of Unsung, a Steelcast 27 supporter. We're at Jerez circuit doing our best to replicate the race, which featured one of Michael Schumacher's most notorious incidents. Using the power of telemetry, we'll also be taking a look at the Formula V10 Gen 1 to see how we can improve it, so stick around. If you don't know who Michael Schumacher is, yo, come on man, he's only a 7-time Formula One champion and all. He was not only famous for his on-track success, but for his singular competitive focus. That's why we are here at Jerez, which hosted the 1997 European Grand Prix, where Schumacher famously turned in on purpose to collide with Jacques Villeneuve's Williams as Jacques attempted an overtake in the middle of a championship fight. There are plenty of videos on the internet on YouTube, so feel free to judge for yourself, but just as critical as the incident itself and the timing of it was Michael's reaction to it. It was classic, famously standing on the wall expressing utter disbelief that someone could dare have taken him out. The car we have on track is the Formula V10 Generation 1, which is AMS2's version of the car from this era. So for the Ferrari aficionados out there, this doesn't exactly look like the Ferrari F310B. According to the Cars of AMS2 website, the model in-game is actually based on the Doma F105, a Japanese chassis that never saw the track. The car in-game, like many other F1 car representations, is quite frankly a handful. It is a V10 after all. You can tell by that beautiful scream. That is the reason why so many people fell in love with F1 during this time period. But with that V10 comes an enormous amount of torque. The tires themselves, I can't say feel particularly sticky, even though they may be. Careful throttling is the name of the game with this car, and a lot of the times you're not going to be full beans until your third gear. From a setup perspective, the first thing you need to concern yourself is the aero, and that's really easy to say, but I'm not talking about a few clicks of wing here and there. These cars need to have their entire suspension optimized to sustain a rather narrow ride height window. In this aspect, the Formula V10 by default may lead to some of you noticing some, oddities when at the edge of performance. Generally, when developing a racing setup, you will first want to reduce the ride height of the car as much as you can. This reduces the center of gravity and the roll center, giving the cars that nimbleness that you want. For aero cars, there are ride height concerns as well. Too low and the car will bottom out, sometimes mid-corner, especially under high load, which can lead to sudden aero drops where the car suddenly loses grip and then instantly grips back up again. And I don't necessarily mean altogether either. Sometimes it could be just the front losing grip or just the rear. This will come across as like this snappy back and forth in the middle of a high-speed corner. It doesn't feel good. If you feel this with any aero car, the thing you're going to be looking to change are the ride heights and the springs, and maybe the bump stops if they're available. So that's exactly what we did with the Formula V10 Gen 1, and it wasn't marginal either. I'm talking close to a centimeter of ride height on each axle, and over 50% in spring stiffness as well. We wanted to keep the car in an optimal aero window without bottoming out under high loads, and softer spring packages, and I tested this, had trouble doing that. The axles turned out to be quite underdamped in that regard. To offset this sharpness with the stiffer package, we did some mechanical work with the ARBs and dampers. The car is going to feel sharp and racy, but also predictable, and that's because the aero is going to shine through. We also did some gearing work, which turned out to be mega as well, so let's take a look at the telemetry. Okay, here we are with Racing Sim Tools once again, and as usual, a 3-lap session with the defaults and a 3-lap session with the customs, and I'm happy to say that I gained almost 2 seconds of lap time. Oh yeah. So first we are at the aero tab, and we're taking a look at, let's take a look at the ride heights and show you what I was talking about before. So highlighting the default package, you can see how these this bar. These bars are bumping off across the 0 axis. That's basically the track. So here the rear end of the car by default is bouncing up and down, and in a lot of cases the front is hitting the ground as well, and this leads to aero complications. The third graph is the rake graph, and you can see the car is squatting in a lot of cases. Right after, when you start accelerating, the rear end of the car gets lower than the front, which doesn't sound right to does it to you? So let's try to clean that up. Boom, we increase the ride height on both axles by about 1 centimeter, and you can see there's only small instances where there was some bottom outs. This I know for sure was some curb work. And if you look at the rake, you can see it's normal. The car's pretty much even Steven there. So let's cross-reference that with the downforce, and I'm going to flash the defaults, and you can see the top graph. The blue is the rear downforce. The yellow is the default rear downforce, and you can see the increase. And that's all basically, I think, the optimal diffuser angle. The diffusers on the rear ends of these cars, they have an optimal ride height with the most aero efficiency, and as you know, diffusers provide drag-free downforce, and I think that also contributes to the center of pressure being farther rearward than the default package. So let's take a look at the differential. Really not much to show with the differential here. I didn't make any changes, or barely any changes at all. Let's see, handling. Differential, there we go. So you're looking at the third graph, the wheel slip difference percentage, and you can see that the let's try to click that's the custom package right there, and let's click the default package, and you can see it looks like the custom unlocks a little bit more, but my point is the car is generally locked for the most part, but it has like these instances of unlocking. But so long as it doesn't go above 10% here, I believe it was some going over some rumble strips and stuff. But so long, generally, if you stay on the tarmac, it shouldn't go above 10% wheel slip difference, which is 10% unlocking, which is what you want to see. And basically, this is a lot to do. It has a lot to do with feel as well. So you want the car to feel right when you're, when you're cornering and when you're coming out of the corner. Let's look at the modal analysis next. Where is the modal analysis? I believe it's under the suspension. Okay, there it is. So again, default package is blue. Top line is roll. The second graph is pitch. Third graph is heave, and the fourth graph is warp. So this is basically the roll of the car. You know what that is? The pitch forward and backwards. The heave is the up and down motion of the car, as well as the warp, which is actually a twisting of the car that actually happens. So if we're flipping back and forth between the custom and the default, you can see that there's less roll, less pitch, less heave, and less warping. All good things. That's what you can get with a stiff package. Oh boy. So next is damper. Let's look at the damper speeds. That's the last thing we're going to look at today. Damper speeds. Boing. Okay, so here I wanted to focus in on the Ravazza curve here at the this is a crucial sector at Imola, and this is where the custom package did a lot of work. So let me focus in on the defaults first. We're at the bottom graph here where the damper speeds are going a little bit crazy here. And you can see the travel on the top two graphs as well. So the yellow line here is the rear damper speeds, and you can see how they're going up and down. Now, that's not critically damped as far as I can see. That there could be some rumble strips involved, but you want to be able to get through that sector as best as possible, as quickly as possible, and carry as much speed as you can, because that next straightaway is extremely, extremely important. So let's take a look at the damper speeds for the custom package, and at the top here you can see that the pink lines are the custom package. You can see there's more travel, there's more total travel, but the speeds are less, if that makes sense. So the car's sort of like handling the sector a lot better. It's the dampers are absorbing all of that energy that's going into the system, the suspension, and keeping the wheels on the track, so to speak, and we're carrying more speed. And then finally, let's cross-reference the actual track speed to show what the gearing can do. So we're going to focus in on this point right here at the end of the Ravazza curves when you're going onto the straightaway, and you can see that the car speeds were generally the same. So let's focus here. All right, so we're accelerating. At this point, I'm, it looks like 5 kilometers per hour faster. Here, I'm 3 kilometers per hour faster. The acceleration with the final drive change was huge, and we gained a lot of time there. Only later on did the default package start to pick up, and now we're at the point where it just really depends on when the gears shifting occurs. But then I wanted to point out something here. There's a point where the default does start getting a little bit faster by 1 kilometer per hour. But what I found with the default package final drive was, you sort of start to like bog down if you hit 7th gear, and it just doesn't accelerate anymore. And you look here, I'm just actually losing speed. When I hit 7th gear, I'm losing speed. This is obviously the next lap. But I thought that was really interesting, whereas with the custom package, I carried that momentum forward. I actually wound up being 4 to 5 kilometers per hour faster at the braking zone for turn 1 at Imola. So all of this all together, aero-wise, damper-wise, and suspension-wise, led to a more optimal aero package, better cornering, more stable, better grip, I should say better grip feel than the default package, and that really just, makes the whole difference. So that's the Formula V10 Generation 1. I hope you enjoy the build. I find the car to be thoroughly enjoyable to drive now, although still challenging. If you have a tendency to pound the throttle like I do, it's a great car to learn some fine throttling skills, as you would expect to need with a car with a V10. If you feel like the car is still too touchy for you, you could reduce the rear springs a click or two, but keep in mind the more you do that, the more you will have bottom-out concerns, depending on the track. That being said, certain slower tracks, you can get away with this though. So be ready to make minor adjustments on a per track basis, along with the usual wing adjustments as you would expect with Formula cars track to track anyway. Coming up, we'll be working on a Group A BMW build, as well as revisiting the Porsche Cup 4.0, which I've heard some really good things recently. If you're inclined to support the channel, remember to click the clickety-clicks and perhaps take a look at the video description for other ways to support us, if you have the means, of course. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and take care.